Hello again, I'm Liam Fogarty. It's been quite a summer on Liverpool's waterfront. There have been the cruise liners, there have been fantastic concerts, crowd-pleasing exhibitions, and the fun isn't over. My guest today is, in part, responsible for the future of that waterfront. She is Sue Grindrod, who is chair of the Liverpool Waterfront Businesses Partnership. Sue, you're very welcome. How have you spent your summer on the Liverpool waterfront?
Well, I was really privileged to actually see the three Queens up front and personally in terms of standing outside the ACCL on the balcony as a guest, and had the pleasure of seeing the three ships come close up, turn around and then go back, and it was absolutely amazing, and the crowds were fantastic. So I really enjoyed that one, and I think it's a moment that I'll never forget.
But your responsibility with the business partnership is to make sure that not only do we have great summers, but that the waterfront is active and thriving all year round. Tell us what the partnership does.
Liverpool Waterfront Business Partnership came together just thinking about how the waterfront became a place. We all know about Liverpool Waterfront, we talk about Liverpool Waterfront, but actually back in 2009, post Capital of Culture, it became apparent that there was different landowners, different building owners, different occupiers, all with vested interest in the waterfront being successful, but it didn't work actually as a sole place. So, for instance, Albert Dock is actually in private ownership, whereas King's Dock was a mix of Homes and Communities Agency, the City Council. So we felt that by bringing together the main stakeholders, the land and building owners together under one umbrella organisation, we could actually start making things happen and start creating a singular place.
And in terms of the geography of the waterfront, where does your writ run, as it were, from north to south?
Well, we obviously have a large waterfront, some of it developed, some undeveloped, and of course what we know now is the developments that have taken place, but at the time we had to define ourselves to become a company. So we actually defined ourselves as running from King's Dock, Albert Dock, Pierhead and Prince's Dock, and that was the defined geography. Of course we're really challenged currently now because of course Stanley Dock, the fantastic development down there, and also now with the exhibition hall, which is just on our boundary, but then we've got the Keel apartments that have just been transformed, the Customs and Excise building. Of course, it's absolutely imperative that we bring a marina into the waterfront. They're just sitting outside. So we're just in discussions about how we extend the boundary to include those really exciting developments.
What you say suggests that it's good that people talk and people swap their plans, but you're not a planning authority. You have no kind of executive power. Is it still possible for a trader or a business on the waterfront just to say, well, I'm just going to go my own way and I'm not really bothered what the rest of you think?
Absolutely, somebody could do that. But I think what we have to show is the partnership, the benefit of working in partnership. And actually by doing things together, we can secure investment and development, market ourselves constructively to talk about the Liverpool waterfront. There's a lot of brands and there's a lot of very successful businesses in the waterfront, but we have to show the power of coming together and the good that that can bring. And I think we're certainly doing that.
What lessons have you taken from other waterfronts around the world? Because you actually hosted a conference this June, I think,
yes,
of people from Sydney and North America and so on. What were they telling you that you were thinking, oh, that sounds good, we should do that here?
Well, in IFB 2014, we were asked to develop an event around waterfronts and thinking about how waterfronts contribute to the economy of a city. So we started in 14, and it was a really small-scale idea. We thought we'd put on an event. It was almost like a fringe event. And we were very lucky to secure speakers from Shanghai, from New York and Copenhagen. And that really helped us position and think about, well, actually, where is Liverpool's waterfront in terms of global, international waterfronts? Have we got one of the best waterfronts? We've certainly got an iconic skyline. What are the components that make up a waterfront? So this year's event very much focused on the strengths that Liverpool has in terms of the role that culture and placemaking can play in the development of a waterfront. And our speakers from Cape Town and Sydney were really fascinating and interesting in what they brought to the conference. Cape Town was a fantastic example of a waterfront that's continued to develop itself. However, its challenges are now how it connects back into the city. So when we're listening to these speakers, we're all the time thinking about, well, where's Liverpool in that? So when they were talking about connecting with the city, of course, Liverpool is so connected into its city centre. We've got a fantastic opportunity there.
Well, you say that. That's certainly true of the area around Albert Dock and the Museum of Liverpool and King's Dock. But to the north, as it were, on the old Dock estate, where where the real business of the port of Liverpool is done, is still kind of its own place. The dock road is a barrier, really, rather than a bridge. What are you doing to address that kind of division in the north of the waterfront?
So we've obviously got Liverpool Waters, which is part of the ongoing development, and we don't have any say on that. That's Peel's development, and obviously I can't speak on their behalf, but it is a fantastic, exciting development. I think Stanley Dock development shows, through Harcourt's investment, and of course they developed the Titanic Hotel in Belfast, what you can do with the regeneration of that kind of size and scale. And of course they continue to develop, the tobacco warehouse. So we have to try and connect Stanley Dock. Now, for a visitor to the waterfront, we talk about the waterfront, they don't really know what that means. But actually the waterfront is huge in scale, and actually you could say it now extends down to Otterspool all the way up to where Peel Ports are now developing in Peel 2, and with the new container ships coming in, etc., and the development they're putting out into the sea. And then, of course, Liverpool Waters and Wirral Waters mirroring each other in a way and making a different connection.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Wirral Waters, because the Mersey laps on two shores. What connections do you have with businesses on the other side, on the Wirral side of the Mersey?
I mean, we as a business partnership don't connect in with Wirral, but we talk about Wirral all the time. Of course, the best views of Liverpool's waterfront are from the Wirral side. And I think actually the tourism offer works really well because we talk about the regional offer in that way. However, for Liverpool Waterfront Business Partnership, we're not as plugged into what's happening in the Wirral. What we do see, though, is that the Liverpool Waters and the Wirral Waters development start that ocean gateway entrance into the Mersey, but then obviously that will continue down into the ship canal.
Because they're both owned by Peel, as indeed is the ship canal, so you have that natural connection there. Can I ask you about one of the kind of sources of tension, it seems to me, and that is over the World Heritage status of much of the Liverpool waterfront, not all of it, which was bestowed by UNESCO. Now, at the time, everybody thought, well, that's a great idea, bring loads of tourists here, wonderful. And yet it's pretty clear that that is a problem, isn't it, for some of your members in what they want to do in terms of developing their bits of the waterfront. Are we in danger of losing that UNESCO status? And if we are, would it be such a loss anyway?
I mean, obviously, the World Heritage Site as it currently stands in Liverpool is on the at-risk. And there is a danger of Liverpool losing that status. However, it feels like Liverpool's doing everything it can to try and retain that status. I think there are interesting dilemmas to retain the status, and I think it's important that it's understood that, the fact that the planning permission was given for Liverpool Waters put us at risk, and yet why would you not want to see the docks develop, bring investment, bring jobs and economic benefit to Liverpool through that development?
Is that a hard sell to people who are perhaps more traditional minded, more concerned with the heritage of Liverpool rather than with, the prospects for future growth and future development?
I mean, personally, I believe that development alongside heritage should happen alongside each other, and it's just about taking care and being very clear about the quality of developments, what they're going to do, their benefit, and they're not just lots and lots of high-rise buildings throwing in, lots of apartments, etc. There's a real mix, and celebrating the heritage that sits around it. I mean, Albert Dock is the largest grouping of Grade 1 listed buildings, and yet we've got new developments sitting around us. And interesting, anything that sits around the Albert Dock, because of the scale of it, you have to really consider the developments that kind of support the Albert Dock and keep the skyline for Liverpool. And I think all that thinking is going on with the planning and the development around Liverpool Waters. But it's so far off hence. The planning permission's been given, but of course for Peel now, they're looking for investment and to attract developers. What's interesting for the World Heritage Site Steering Group, and there is a steering group, taking great care, and Historic England sit on that, as well as the head of planning from the City Council and other interested stakeholders, as well as Peel, and a number of us on the waterfront, is we're really thinking about how we preserve and protect that World Heritage Site status. But sometimes you're up against it because there's a differing of views in terms of what Liverpool can now do in terms of developing that, what is a barren North Docks.
Do you think if your partnership had been in place maybe 5, 6 years ago, that there are things which have been built down, say, at Man Island, which would not be built because people might think that doesn't really fit in with our bigger vision?
I think certainly we as a partnership have tried to grapple a kind of a consolidated view about the development. And I think the strategic investment framework that the city published through Liverpool Vision actually did consolidate all our ambitions for the waterfront, but other parts of the city. And we were able, for a number of reasons, to influence what was going in there. And it really is about dovetailing what you want, what the city want, and bringing that all together. That means it becomes possible and feasible for delivery. Whereas if we've got plans and development plans and local plans all being, published, but there's been no stakeholder or consultation, then you can see why they start failing. And I would say that a lot of what's in the strategic investment framework is actually going to be delivered for the waterfront.
Sue, we have plenty more to talk about, and we'll do that after the break. Welcome back. My guest today is Sue Grindrod, who is chair of the Liverpool Waterfront Business Partnership. But one of your other jobs, Sue, is as chair of the Albert Dock, a Grade 1 listed building, a huge tourist attraction, yes, an iconic collection of buildings for Liverpool. What's that job like?
It's fascinating actually working in the environment of a Grade 1 listed estate that has a mixed use with everybody wanting a bit of it, wanting to extend their operating areas outside the bars and restaurants, and trying to retain and preserve the heritage, the kind of quality of what we do down there, any investment and capital development, whilst also supporting the businesses on there to be successful. And it's a really eclectic mix of opportunity as well as discussions that we have around the board.
A lot of people got very sniffy when you allowed a chip shop to open up there, a couple of blocks down from the Tate Gallery, for instance. Does that kind of discussion and debate, does that disappoint you?
I think, it's really hard sometimes, your personal view about something, and maybe you might not like something. If you've got somebody who wants to invest in a business and has a proven track record, and the chip shop's a really good example. So for a number of us, it's a real risk. And obviously we have a residential element on the dock, and we really take care about how the residents are treated on the dock and think about them. The chip shop is really successful and has added to the mix of the offer on the estate. And actually, the operator's pushing the boundaries in that he's open longer, whereas we've got operators who want to shut maybe at 5, 6 o'clock. And as we move into this kind of more cosmopolitan, more kind of global city agenda, it's really important that the businesses can actually keep moving with us in terms of what a visitor would expect, in a waterfront of this ilk.
Of course, it was Richard and Judy in This Morning which probably put the Albert Dock on a global, I suppose, map, certainly in terms of the national consciousness. When they left, how much of a body blow was that to the dock?
It was a huge body blow because obviously, you've got a live studio running on the dock. I mean, you can remember people walking past the studio when Richard and Judy were talking. And it definitely was a draw and attention. I think Arrowcroft, the original developer, then had to rethink their strategy, and they had to, they did reinvest, and they really thought about how the dock was going to work going forward. However, the challenge for the board was more about the right mix, how we're going to invest in the estate. So we kept changing the face of it because you've got these static Grade 1 listed buildings, as beautiful as they are, unless you can actually reveal what's inside those buildings, what's the attractor for visitors. So last year we had 6 million visits to the dock. The mix that we have, we're pretty full. I think we're 98% full now on the dock. I think there's only 2 units empty, which are small office lets. And certainly the attractions and the businesses are benefiting from what we're doing externally, which is about events and animation and actually really activating the water space as well.
I mean, one of your next door neighbours is the Echo Arena, ACC. And of course, next door to that is a new exhibition centre, which is about to open. What's the impact of this new exhibition facility going to be, not just on Albert Dock, but on the waterfront generally?
Well, there's no doubt the exhibition centre is going to bring in a huge amount of new people and new business. It's also going to fill those gaps around those winter months and those outside the main season where actually we do see a downturn in visits to the dock, and then the businesses can struggle. Once we get into January, February, it's a cold, windy, rainy day coming onto the dock. Of course, if there's a conference going on or an exhibition going on in the new exhibition hall, that's going to keep populating and animating and bringing business to not just to the Albert Dock, to the waterfront as a whole. So we see it's a huge benefit.
And when party political conferences are held, it's great to see, the waterfront and the Three Graces and so on in the background. But this business of turning the kind of tourist bit of the waterfront into an all year round attraction, I'm always puzzled why there are never fireworks on New Year's Eve down at the waterfront. You think of this fantastic asset we keep banging on about, and there it is, one of the biggest nights of the year. Unused, lonely.
And I think, unfortunately, there are times of the year when the waterfront can look pretty barren. We've got a lot of public realm that needs animating, and the city, through the culture team, work really hard to keep animating it. And we've seen some fantastic fireworks shows, lighting shows, events happening down on the waterfront just to animate that. But you're right, something like New Year's Eve, why not? I mean, it was obviously done for the start of 2008, and that's something we can put on our list of things that we maybe want to do and follow up. So thank you for the idea.
A couple of weeks ago, the Chief Executive of the Chamber of Commerce, Jenny Stewart, said that she was or her members were a bit worried about the focus on tourism and leisure and services in the city region economy. To what extent are the waterfront businesses fixated on those to the exclusion of other, perhaps more productive, more dynamic industries such as high-tech, business startups and so on?
I mean, it's a business partnership. Obviously, there are business members, there are landowners, building owners, as well as occupiers who run businesses on the waterfront. And I think what we're really interested in is about having the right infrastructure, creating the right environment for growth and success for these businesses. So one of the challenges we're dealing with at the moment is just broadband. Having broadband that's suitable for the kind of businesses that want to be attracted into the waterfront. Now you've got, grade 1 listed buildings, you've got archaic infrastructure around it. And what's really important is that if you want the growth and to attract those businesses and for them to be successful, then you've got to have the right infrastructure. So we're working on that at the moment with the City Council.
Because it was a real struggle, wasn't it, to get the right level of broadband for the International Festival of Business Delegates,
Yes.
who at one point faced the possibility of turning up, switching on their laptops and not getting a signal.
Yes.
Have you cracked that, do you think? Because, of course, there's another IFB next year.
We are just about to crack that. There's some fantastic, exciting developments, and there's a real move also to have free Wi-Fi access across the city. It's happening in pockets, but part of the infrastructure development will actually create that environment. So it feels like if you want to be a global city and if you want to be a global waterfront, you've got to have that right infrastructure. And they're hidden things. I mean, I know when I go into work, I can press on my laptop, but when you've got an IT specialist company who are a quantum of value in the Port of Liverpool building, who actually work on really complicated IT solutions, for the Ministry of Defence, etc., and they haven't got the right IT infrastructure, yet they've relocated from London to Liverpool, you've got to then start listening to their needs and trying to support the businesses to be successful.
And what about this idea of competing with other cities, not just in the UK, but in Europe? You, I assume, have to go out and sell the waterfront to drag in investments and events and so on. Do you have a kind of big three things that you use to draw people in, to make people come and invest here?
Well, Liverpool Visions' role is to bring the inward investment. I think what we do as a partnership is make it very easy for investors and for anyone interested in developments in the city to see what can be done. Through the partnership and the partnership model, but also through the kind of people that we're working with in terms of Neptune, who obviously did the Man Island development, who also preferred developer on Kings. And it's seeing what developments can happen within that historic environment, which is really important. It's the same for Peel. In some ways, what we're creating is a mature waterfront that Liverpool Waters just gradually extends on and grows and extends our offer. I think it's really difficult to know what the three top things are. I think it's so more complex than that. But certainly if you want to develop, you want to be able to offer a place in a location that is buzzy, it's busy, it looks successful, it's clean, it's tidy, it's secure, it's safe, and something's happening all the time, and that's what we're trying to create.
I said at the outset that 2015 is turning out to be a tremendous year for the waterfront, and it's been given a profile that maybe nobody would have dreamt of 10, 15 years ago, certainly 20 years ago when the Albert Dock was kind of sinking in the mud. What lessons are you and your member organisations, your partners, taking away from this about things that we can do better or things that really we're already doing well?
I think we're getting a sense that we're doing some really good things. And I think, the culture team and the mayor's support and the investment that's coming in is all definitely going down the right direction. We need to continue to invest and develop. And that's not always about building new. That's about how you keep creating a new offer or something that's going to attract investment. Because it's not just about visitors and tourism. We want the local communities to see the waterfront as something that they value and cherish and want to come and enjoy. So what's important for somewhere like the Albert Dock, which is a Grade 1 listed estate, is we have to keep reinventing what's going on. And that's done better through events and animation. And we're very grateful for some of the large-scale events that we've secured. I mean, certainly the Cunard event was something that we'll not see again. And going forward, what's important is that we maintain that momentum, particularly where there is very little funding. So it is up to the private sector to keep supporting the mayor and the culture team to keep creating and developing and attracting these events to maintain that vibrancy. And
very briefly, quite a few people have kind of spectacular, almost futuristic plans for North Liverpool and for Mersey Waters, Liverpool Waters. If you or I are still around in 20 years, 25 years' time, what will Liverpool's waterfront look like and feel like?
I think Liverpool's waterfront will just be bigger and better. It'll extend all the way down to the festival site, down to Otters Pool. Liverpool Waters will have been developed, will be very connected into the ports, and it will just feel like a very singular place, one place that we'll all benefit from.
Well, Sue, it's been fascinating meeting you and talking to you. Good luck with your efforts, both with the Waterfront Business Partnership and indeed with the good old Albert Dock, which everybody loves. Thank you for watching, and thanks to Sue for joining us, and we'll see you again shortly.